Imagine a football team playing a group stage match in Mexico City. The stadium sits at 2,200 meters above sea level. Thin air, a sold-out crowd, one of the most famous arenas in world football. 3 days later, that same team boards a plane. They fly for 6 hours. They land on the other side of a continent. They are still inside the same tournament. This is the 2026 FIFA World Cup. 48 teams, 104 matches, 3 countries, 16 cities, 4 time zones. A span of geography larger than Europe. To understand how football arrived here, you have to go back. Back to the moment the World Cup simply outgrew what any single country could hold.
The first World Cup was held in Uruguay in 1930. 13 teams. A tournament that fit comfortably inside one small South American country. By 1934, it was 16 teams. That number held for almost 50 years. Then in 1982, it jumped to 24. In 1998, 32. Each expansion felt enormous at the time. Each one eventually became the new normal. Then, on January 10, 2017, the FIFA Council met in Zurich. They voted unanimously to expand the World Cup to 48 teams, starting in 2026. A 50% increase overnight. The mathematics of what followed were staggering. 64 matches became 104. That is 40 additional games. More matches added on top than the entire 1990 tournament contained. The tournament window stretched to 39 days across 16 cities. But the real weight of that decision was never just about the numbers.
A modern World Cup is an infrastructure event as much as a sporting one. You need stadiums, yes, but you also need airports capable of handling a sudden surge of international arrivals. Hotel capacity for tens of thousands of fans moving city to city. Transportation networks linking venues hundreds of kilometers apart. Security infrastructure coordinated across an entire country. Broadcast facilities capable of transmitting to billions of viewers. Qatar in 2022 compressed all of this into an area roughly the size of a large city. 8 stadiums, 5 host cities, average distances that could be covered by a short taxi ride. It was, logistically, the most compact World Cup ever staged. A 48-team tournament could never replicate that model. The scale required was simply in a different category. Which immediately raised a harder question. Who on earth could actually host it?
On June 13, 2018, FIFA's 68th Congress convened in Moscow. The day before the host nation, Russia, opened the tournament on home soil. The agenda included one item that would define the following 8 years of football. A vote to decide who would host 2026. 2 bids were on the table. A joint proposal from the United States, Canada, and Mexico, operating under the banner United 2026, and a bid from Morocco. Morocco's case deserved genuine respect. The continent's football culture runs deep. Africa had hosted the World Cup just once, in South Africa in 2010. There was a real argument, an emotional one and a political one, that 2026 was Africa's turn. Morocco built its entire campaign around that idea. FIFA's own evaluation told a different story. The bid task force assessment was blunt. The amount of new infrastructure required for the Morocco 2026 bid to become reality cannot be overstated.
Of Morocco's 14 proposed stadiums, every single one required either major renovation or complete construction. Transport was flagged as high risk. Accommodation was flagged as high risk. The country's projected spend to make the bid viable? Approximately $16 billion. Morocco scored 2.7 out of 5 in FIFA's evaluation. The United 2026 bid scored 4.0. It required 0 new tournament-specific construction. Every stadium already existed, every airport already operated. The vote was 134 to 65. 203 member associations cast ballots. 1, Iran, voted for neither bid. It was not close. It is worth pausing on Morocco for a moment, though, because 4 years later, at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, Morocco reached the semifinals, the first African nation ever to do so. The football credibility was never the question. It was always the infrastructure.
The United States has more stadiums above 40,000 seats than almost any country on Earth. That is the FIFA minimum for World Cup venues, and North America clears it dozens of times over without touching a single brick. The NFL built it. Decades of investing in enormous, multi-purpose venues, purpose-designed for spectacle at scale. AT&T Stadium in Dallas seats 94,000. MetLife Stadium in New Jersey seats over 82,000. These are not football stadiums being stretched to accommodate the World Cup. They are among the largest, most technically advanced sports venues on the planet. Beyond the stadiums, the supporting infrastructure was already in place. Major international airports in every host city. Hotel stock capable of absorbing millions of visitors. A broadcast market representing one of the largest commercial footprints in world sport. FIFA's financial projections made this concrete.
The North American bid projected tournament revenue of $14.3 billion. Morocco's equivalent projection was $7.2 billion. For an organization that funds football development globally through World Cup surpluses, that gap was decisive. Mexico's role added historical weight. Estadio Azteca had already hosted 2 World Cups, in 1970 and 1986. In 2026, it becomes the only stadium in history to host a third. It opens the tournament on June 11. Canada, meanwhile, had never hosted the Men's World Cup. For 2 of the 3 countries in the bid, it was a first.
Here is the thing that tends to surprise people when they look at how the matches were eventually distributed. The United States hosts 78 of the 104 games. Canada hosts 13. Mexico hosts 13. Every match from the quarterfinals onward, the last 16 games of the tournament, takes place on U.S. soil. So why did the U.S. need 2 partners at all? The answer is that the United States needed Canada and Mexico far more during the bidding phase than during the hosting phase. When the joint proposal was formally unveiled in April 2017, the initial plan had the U.S. hosting 60 of 80 matches. Canada and Mexico would get 10 each. All matches from the quarterfinals onward, the United States. The basic architecture was set from the very beginning. What the partnership gave the bid was political weight. A 3-country proposal spanning the entire North American continent transformed the pitch.
This was no longer a US hosting bid with 2 smaller neighbors attached. It became a continental project, one FIFA could present as inclusive, historic, and commercially unassailable. Canada would host its first Men's World Cup. Mexico would become the only country to have hosted 3, and FIFA could point to a model of regional cooperation at a scale the tournament had never seen. When the format later expanded from 80 to 104 matches in 2023, the US absorbed most of the additional games. Its stadium inventory was simply larger. The final split, 78, 13, 13, was not FIFA shifting the balance after the fact. It was the logical extension of a structure that had been designed in that direction from day one.
Even with the infrastructure question resolved, a different problem remained. A tournament spread across a continent requires far more than stadiums. It requires a strategy for managing distance at a scale football has never attempted. The numbers give you a sense of it. Los Angeles to New York is a 5 to 6 hour flight. Miami to Vancouver is 6 hours. The shortest flight between the two most distant venues in this tournament is nearly 7 hours. Qatar's average inter-venue distance was comparable to a short drive across a mid-sized city. This is categorically different. Then, there is altitude. Mexico City sits at 2,200 meters above sea level. Players arriving from sea-level cities have measurably less oxygen available during exertion. Azteca has exploited this for decades. It is a major reason Mexico's home record there is extraordinary. In 2026, teams in the Central Cluster face that reality in the group stage.
Add 4 time zones, international border crossings for teams and officials, and the logistical complexity compounds quickly. FIFA's solution was to stop thinking about this as one tournament and start designing it as 3 parallel ones. The 16 host cities were organized into geographic clusters. The Western Cluster: Vancouver, Seattle, San Francisco Bay Area, Los Angeles, and Guadalajara. The Central Cluster: Mexico City, Monterrey, Dallas, Houston, and Kansas City. The Eastern Cluster: Toronto, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Miami, and Atlanta. Through the group stage, teams play all 3 of their matches inside a single cluster. Travel distances within a cluster are manageable. The Western Corridor runs north-south along the Pacific coast with relatively short hops between cities. The eastern seaboard is connected by some of the densest air and rail links in the world.
Only when the knockout rounds begin does the tournament consolidate, and by the quarterfinals, it is contracted entirely to the United States. The 3 parallel tournaments become one. MetLife Stadium in New Jersey hosts the final on July 19th.
The 2026 World Cup sits at the center of a longer pattern. The 2030 tournament will span Spain, Portugal, and Morocco as its 3 primary hosts. 3 matches, the opening fixtures, will be played in Uruguay, Argentina, and Paraguay to mark 100 years since the first World Cup in Montevideo. 6 nations across 3 continents hosting a single tournament. The multi-host model, already larger than 2026. Then 2034, Saudi Arabia, alone. 1 country hosting a 48-team World Cup for the first time in history. No partner nations, no clusters spread across a continent. Just 1 host, absorbing everything the expanded format demands. What 2026 proved, or is in the process of proving, is that the World Cup at 48 teams operates differently from anything that came before it. It is no longer simply a sporting event that a country hosts. It is a logistical system that a region has to be designed to run.
The 3-country structure was never really about sharing the honor. It was about assembling enough infrastructure to make the thing possible at all. Every future host will be measured against what North America built in 2026. Whether they do it across 6 countries or somehow alone. The question the tournament is now asking, tournament after tournament, is a simple one. How big can football get before the world runs out of places large enough to hold it?